Good morning. I'm Michael Mostyn, the Chief Executive Officer of Brith, Canada, this country's oldest grassroots Jewish charity and advocacy organization. I've been vested with the distinct honor of welcoming you to Brith, Canada's Remembrance Day ceremony. For our organization, Remembrance Day is both a resolute occasion and one where we are filled with solemn pride as we remember all the men and women who sacrificed their lives in service to this great nation. We also recall with pride that from its outset, Jewish citizens have proudly served in defense of Canada. Though the reasons that have driven Canadians to enlist may have changed as our nation has matured, Canadians have always been willing to serve their country when asked to do so. Whether it be on the South African Highveld, the fields of Flanders, the coast of Normandy, the outskirts of Sarajevo, or in the hills of Kandahar, our armed forces have answered the call in defense of Canada's freedom. It is the indefatigable willingness of generations of servicemen and women to make unimaginable sacrifices on behalf of their nation that have helped to make our home the diverse and vibrant democracy that it is today. As a member of Canada's Jewish community, it is with immense pride that I note that despite the small size of Canada's Jewish population, the impact of Jewish service persons has been significant. For example, during the Second World War, more than 17,000 Jewish men and women out of a population of only 168,000 served. Jewish Canadian combatants are recognized as having served in every major engagement involving the Canadian forces. Over 200 were awarded commendations for their gallantry in helping to defend the values and freedoms of the nation, and approximately 450 Canadian Jews sacrificed their lives in defense of their country. Canada's Jewry has always been a small but integral component of the Canadian mosaic, and there is no more noble demonstration of the courage and sacrifice made by Canadian Jews to aid in the continuance of the growth of this nation than the sacrifice made by Jewish servicemen and women. Today, Brith Canada has the privilege of sharing with you the stories of some of Canada's Jewish veterans. It is my hope that their narratives will serve as an inspirational reminder of the deep and everlasting connection that binds Canadian Jewry to our country. On this day in particular, and every day, we owe our gratitude to all of those who have served and presently serve on behalf of Canada. We honor and salute you.
Good morning. My name is Norman Gardner, and I am the Toronto Post Commander for the Jewish War Veterans of Canada. Thank you for joining us in coordination with B'nai Brith for this Remembrance Day service. During World War II, about 1.5 million Jewish soldiers served in Allied military forces, including 17,000 to 19,000 Canadians, since many volunteers registered as other denominations as they contemplated serving in combat and perhaps being taken prisoner. Many Jewish servicemen went on to accomplish extraordinary deeds in facing the enemy and were awarded medals for their bravery and success in battle. Unfortunately, many have now passed away, but their deeds need to be remembered, and today we will be doing that. I will name a few of them as they deserve mentioning. Sumner James was a merchant marine who came forward to unhook two merchant ships loaded with ammunition amid a fiery burning dock that had been set on fire from German aircraft, an action that saved those ships. Sidney Schulmson, a pilot who personally destroyed at least 10 German ships and developed methods of attack that made Allied aircraft more successful in destroying German shipping. Mo Hurwitz, who was a tank commander, captured dozens of German troops and destroyed German artillery and machine gun posts on several occasions, and whose regiment created the Mo Hurwitz Award annually to the best member of the regiment and who died in battle. Ben Dunkelman, who landed on D-Day and was the only Queen's Own Rifles officer landing that day who was still with his unit at the end of the war. Dunkelman fought in many battles and was asked by Prime Minister Mackenzie King to run as a Liberal candidate in the Spadina riding. He refused because there was a war to be finished. He later went on to fight in Israel's War of Independence. David and Leo Heaps were the only brothers to win the military medal for their services. One of the brothers worked with the Dutch underground to rescue Allied troops and attack German military targets. Wilf Cantor, a pilot who was awarded the Distinguished Flying Medal by King George VI for his gallantry and who was shot down twice, was a prisoner of war and an escapee. Wilf went on to fight in Israel's War of Independence and lost his life in it. Alfred Brenner was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by the King. He was also shot down, but sent a pigeon to solicit rescue while spending 2 days on a life raft in the English Channel. There are so many more names I could cite, but at this time, I would like to mention that our Jewish brethren in the Russian army lost 120,000 lives in battle, and another 80,000 were rumored to have been murdered as prisoners of war. Many American and British Jews were also recognized for their wartime exploits as well. Today, we remember all of them. Sadly, I'd like to mention that since many of our members have passed on, we will be closing our office at the end of the year and working with the community to the best of our ability to honor the service and legacy of Jewish Canadians who have served our country and the democratic ideals that we enjoy and treasure. Thank you for being with us.
Shalom everyone. I'm privileged to be speaking on behalf of the State of Israel on Remembrance Day, as we gather to honor members of the armed forces who have died in the line of duty, dating back to the First World War. On this day, we honor all veterans who have put their lives on the line to preserve our freedoms. Throughout Canada's robust military history, Jewish members of the armed forces have always put their lives on the line to protect and defend this country. Thousands of Jewish people served in the Great War, with over 120 dying in battle. During the Second World War, an estimated 38% of the male Jewish population volunteered to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces, totaling nearly 17,000 active members. However, we know that thousands more enlisted without declaring their Jewish identity, as they fought against the most destructive anti-Semitic regime of all time. These men sacrificed everything for Canadians, and hundreds of Jewish men died on the front lines of World War II. Records show that over 5,000 Jewish women also served in both World Wars. Ottawa native Lillian Freeman was a gifted organizer, philanthropist, and Zionist. She co-founded what would become the Royal Canadian Legion, now Canada's largest veteran organization. Post-war, in her living room, Lillian created the Canadian poppy that we all wear on our hearts with pride. Moreover, she was instrumental in bringing 150 Jewish orphans from Ukraine to Canada after the war, a piece of history that feels all too familiar. Lillian's story is just one example of the many dedicated Jewish that defended and supported Canada's war efforts throughout history. Today, we honor and remember all who served with courage to defend Canada and its allies. Israel will always stand alongside you. May all those with a maple leaf and a Star of David on their gravestone rest in blessed memory.
Hello, it's Lawrence McCauley, the Minister of Veterans Affairs. In this season of remembrance, I want to express my thanks to the Jewish Canadian community for its long and proud legacy of service in our armed forces. For generations, you have defended peace, freedom, democracy, and human rights during military operations all over the world. And for some, like the more than 17,000 Jews from Canada who served during the Second World War, the fight was intensely personal. In that conflict, our country's Jewish service members played an important role to help bring an end to the Nazi regime that had claimed more than 6 million Jews' lives in the Holocaust. In the 77 years since, Jewish Canadians have lived up to the legacy of those who came before them by continuing to proudly defend the ideas that so many died to protect. For this, we'll always be grateful. Today and all throughout these days of commemoration, we honor the Jewish Canadians and all others from Canada who lost their lives serving our country, who have worn the uniform, and who serve today, lest we forget.
I'm Melissa Lanceman, Member of Parliament of Thornhill and Deputy Leader of the Opposition. Remembrance Day is a time for us to solemnly reflect on the sacrifices made by veterans and recognize and thank those currently serving in the armed forces. It's also a time for us to give thanks for the freedoms and liberties we enjoy today, made possible only by the contributions of our brave servicemen and women. Throughout our nation's history, Jewish Canadians have been among the first to step up and defend Canada whenever and wherever necessary. Beginning as far back as World War I and counting up to the present day, it's a legacy of service that we can be extremely proud of. From Belgium to Britain, Korea to Kuwait, the impact of Jewish Canadian service can be seen across the world in many countries where millions of people enjoy free lives today. This service is not only a source of pride for our community and for our nation, but it also provided an inspiration to many Canadians, Jewish and non-Jewish, and helped break barriers for future generations to come. On Remembrance Day, we also thank those who have supported and continue to support our veterans, like the countless military families, service organizations, and many volunteers here at home. Thank you especially to B'nai Brith for your long history of service with Allied war efforts and for your ongoing contributions to our veterans. I'd like to take this occasion to speak directly to veterans in the audience today and to those listening and watching at home. Thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifices, and thank you for fighting to protect the rights and freedoms that we cherish today. A grateful nation and this grateful Member of Parliament stand behind you. We will never forget what you did for our country, lest we forget.
Hi, my name is Rachel Blaney and I'm the Member of Parliament for North Island Powell River, and I'm deeply honored to be here with you today to recognize Remembrance Day. I want to thank B'nai Brith Canada for inviting me to share with you today. I think it's a deep honor to respect the Jewish service in the military for Canada. We know that 5,000 stepped forward during World War I, and during the Second World War, 17,000 men and women stood up to fight the oppressive policies of Nazi Germany. We can only imagine that dedication and the need to stand up to protect Jewish people across the planet and what that meant for Jewish Canadians. So I want to thank you for standing up for Canada, for helping us build a country that continues to work towards more inclusion, more respect. It is the work of the ancestors in your culture who have done that, and the people who continue to serve in our military today. I just want to take an opportunity to acknowledge them all. And lastly, I just want to mention that we know that in this country, in the 30s and the 40s, Jewish people often had serious challenges because of the decisions Canada was making. And I think we have to recognize how dedicated those veterans were who continued to serve during such a challenging time. And I also want to thank all the Jewish community that recognized and supported those who served during the Second World War by sending kosher food, by remembering them and taking care of them the best that they could. So I want to just in closing say thank you for your dedication to our country. Thank you for standing up against injustice. And thank you so much for your service, both in the past and today.
Bonjour, mon nom est Luc Desilets, député de la circonscription de Rivière-des-Mille-Îles et aussi porte-parole du Bloc québécois en matière d'anciens combattants. Le 11 novembre 2022, nous soulignons le jour du souvenir et c'est un honneur pour moi que de mettre l'accent aujourd'hui, au nom de tous les députés du Bloc québécois, sur le courage et le sacrifice des anciens combattants juifs. La nation québécoise a la chance de compter sur une très ancienne et dynamique diaspora juive. Les Juifs de Montréal possèdent un long historique de combat au nom du Québec et du Canada. Plus de 5000 hommes et femmes de la communauté juive ont servi en uniforme pendant la Grande Guerre. 17 000 ont servi pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Beaucoup ont aussi servi durant la guerre de Corée, durant des missions de paix en ex-Yougoslavie, à Chypre et au Rwanda. Beaucoup ont aussi servi en Afghanistan. Les communautés juives font partie intégrante de notre histoire militaire, mais leur expérience a été distincte. Les Québécois et Québécoises connaissent le poids du sacrifice et l'importance de souligner la contribution des Juifs aux efforts de guerre et aux efforts de paix. Nous avons un devoir de mémoire envers les anciens combattants juifs qui ont consenti au sacrifice ultime de la liberté. C'est pour cette raison qu'au nom du Bloc québécois, je vous dis, nous ne vous oublierons jamais.
Oh Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand ton bras s'est porté le Père, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I would go so far as to say that my upbringing was really abject poverty. We got relief tickets, they were called relief, from City Hall for food. It was a terrible time for me. I had mixed feelings about what was going on in Europe and the poverty here, a mix, and I joined the army. We were counter-artillery. I mean, I had no idea where I was going to end up. Like some people join up and they know they want to be infantry or engineer or whatever. And it was called this survey regiment. It was counter battery. The job of the unit was to ascertain the location of German artillery and bring counter artillery to bear on them. Well, we landed in Normandy in what we call D+30. The colonel of our regiment decided he was going to show us what it was like to be in action. Took us to an area where there had been a battle the night before, and there were hundreds of soldiers, hundreds. Had been in a bitter fight the night before, Canadians and Germans. They were scattered all over. And it was an experience, but It's not that I found. I was indifferent. In other words, they were dead, I was alive, and that was my attitude throughout the whole year. My best experience as a soldier after the war was with a private school. There is a senior teacher there. He gets the students involved as well, with Holocaust victims and with Jewish soldiers. He would call me up every so often, and he'd have the school all sitting on the floor, and I would answer questions. All in all, I've had the good, the bad, the bitter. I have a wonderful wife, and I'm very fortunate. Thank you in return.
Good day from Canadian Forces Base Borden. I am Lieutenant Sherry Gelbard, and I am honored to offer these words on this special day. In tribute to the thousands of Jewish war veterans who fought in Canada's wars, and in memory of the hundreds who lost their lives in service to their country, we will remember them. There is no greater honor than to help defend one's country and one's life. The Jewish war veterans of Canada are proud former military personnel who have fought and continue to fight for the freedom of this country. We are evidence of the full participation of the Jewish people in Canada's military efforts. Today is one of remembrance. Many have served over the last number of years, carrying with them the stories of the forgotten. Today we give a voice to those who can no longer do so. In everything we say and everything we do, we pay tribute and perpetual memorial to those who fought bravely for this country, to remember those who lost the battle and did not come home, to remember those who came home after the battle, a different person, to remember and not take for granted the freedoms we enjoy because of the high cost that was paid. Many individuals dedicated their lives to their country and deserve to be recognized for their sacrifice. May the Holy One, blessed is He, preserve and rescue our fighting people from every trouble and distress, and from every plague and illness, and may He send blessing and success in their every endeavor. May He lead our enemies under their sway, and may He grant them salvation and crown them with victory. Amen.
It was a war that had to be fought and won, and Germany had to be defeated in order for this to happen. And there was no other way than to do what had to be done, all right? We may not have known exactly what we were getting in for, because after all, an 18-year-old, you feel that you're invincible. And mind you, that feeling helped me survive what I went through. What can we say? I've always been proud of my service that I performed in World War II. I'm Dr. Bill Novick. I'm a retired physician. I served in the Royal Canadian Air Force as a bomber pilot, enlisting at the age of 18 in December 1941. I was trained as this bomber pilot and was sent overseas in April 1943, where I underwent further training and was then assigned to the Canadian group of Bomber Command. I always proud of the fact, doubly proud that one is Canadian, and more so a little bit or a lot as being a Jewish veteran. I think the Jewish community at that time, much smaller of course than it is now, much less powerful in a way than it is now, did an excellent job of supporting the Canadian war effort. We suffered casualties as well, and these people should always be in our memory. I myself, being perhaps with a more educated group of comrades than other people, did not suffer any anti-Semitic problems. I was frequently the only Jew in my group, apart from the navigator, who I mentioned was also Jewish. But we worked well as a team and performed our duties admirably, all right? I fortunately survived the war, both physically and psychologically well, and as the government was providing free university education, I certainly took advantage of it, and I went through both pre-medical training and medical training on this government plan. I subsequently married, I raised a family, I practiced medicine for 60 years. My wife and I are the proud parents of 4 children, 2 boys who are doctors, and our 2 daughters are lawyers, and we have 5 grandsons, all in the process of continuing their professional education. Well, I think our community can be very proud of what was done in the war and what is continued being done now. And we should all remember that despite our differences as far as religion is concerned, Kol Yisrael Chaverim, all Jews are brothers, and we should not forget that and remember that we owe it to continue to support our communities all across the country and to help our brethren who need somewhat more support to help them thrive as Jews within the Jewish community.
My name is Rabbi Dr. Nata Glogauer. I'm a captain in the Canadian Armed Forces, serving in 4th Canadian Division, HQ, and Joint Task Force. El Male Rachamim, Shochem Miramim, Hamtze Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'malos Kedoshim Mutaharim, Kezoar Harakia Mazhirin, Es Nishmas HaChayalim Shehemtzu V'Sheneragu Be'ez Milchamtam B'Tzava HaKanadi, Ba'avur Shebli Nederet Tzedaka Ba'adaskaras Nishmasan Began Eden Te Menucha Sam Lachen Bal Harachamim Yastirein B'Seser Knafav Le'alamim Vitzror Bitzror HaChaim Esh Nishmosehen Adonai Hu Nachalasam V'Anucho Al Mishkavaisam B'Shalom V'Nomar Amen.
Yiskadal v'yiskadash Shemei Rabbo V'yolamo divro chirusei v'yamlich malchusei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beis Yisrael ba'agolo u'v'zman koriv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbo mevorach leolam u'l'olmei olmayo Yisborach v'yishtabach v'yisboa v'yisremam v'yisnasei v'yisado v'yisale v'yisalol shemei d'kudsho Brith hu leilo min kol birchoso v'shiroso tushbechoso v'nechemoso da'amiron v'yolemo v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabbo min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Kol od balevav Nefesh Yehudi Homiya עבדת תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו,